Doug Clark. Let's give him a round of applause. Doug's obviously announced this is his last year of flagging here at the Knoxville Raceway. I think he's going to start at Hartford next year. Is that what you're?
No, once I'm done here, I'm done.
All right. He says he's done. Usually in these we talk about when you were young and how you got into this sort of thing and how it all began.
Oh, that's back when I was a kid, because Doug Wolfgang and I and Roger Nelson, Butch Yezda, all of us, we either raced bicycles around the football field across the street from my mom and dad's, or else we had wagons. We made a couple different racetracks. We had one racetrack at Butch Yezda's house. We called that the Husitts, and we had another one at Dennis Slack's track, and we called that Jackson, Minnesota, because it was a little bigger, and we used to race wagons around there.
Very good. Well, I promised you that we wouldn't have Doug call. You turned your phone off.
Yes, I did.
But he did call earlier, and I got a recording a little bit.
This is scary.
This might surprise you. Doug was describing when you guys were young and how things got started, and we'll do our best here with the microphone.
Am I going to cry?
Absolutely not. You're not going to cry at all. Unless, no, you won't.
They had this race in Sioux Falls called Keenan's Day.
Yep.
The very first one or two of them they had were at the fairgrounds. Well, Pete's welding shop serviced the local, racing association. So two or three of those guys brought their cars over to Pete's shop during the day to work on them, and we all really got to see sprint cars up close.
Right.
The two that I remember were Itch Daniels, Don Itch.
Yep.
Or not Don. Itch Daniels.
Yep.
From Minneapolis, and little Joe Saldana. And when he was, I don't know, 20, 21, 2 years old. And that would have been in the middle 60s. So we were all laid up with sprint cars, and then we lived in the same area that Darrell Dawley did, who later raced at Knoxville. And he was one of the local modified kings. In fact, he won a few championships at Jackson and Fairmont.
Yep.
And so we hung around his shop and we progressed to liking racing. But I gotta tell you, when I got my first car, Doug, he's gonna be my mechanic. And he ain't no mechanic. He's the worst. So, plus he's black.
Yeah.
In those days it was a big deal to give signals from the infield, like you'd stretch your arms out.
Yep.
The driver.
See how far out in front you are? Yeah.
Well, I got there after a while. I got to where I could lead a few races and win a couple. But he's out there stretching around. Jesus Christ. I said, I can't see you. Can you blend in? So he put this white STP t-shirt on and a red nylon jacket STP. We thought we were cool because that's before the days of real t-shirts,
Yep.
And we all had an STP t-shirt, which we wore every single day of the week because it was a race shirt. And I said, well, you gotta put a hat on. So this dumb son of a he finds this Mexican sombrero that was like a 50-gallon one, It was about 2 foot tall and wide. So we're up the fairgrounds at the Sioux Empire Fair, and I actually won the race, which in them days was amazing.
Yeah.
Because it was a big deal. I mean, it was, I don't know, 10,000 people, maybe 12, I don't know, which they can't draw people no more. But it paid $906, I remember it to this day, like nothing.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a millionaire. Well, I got excited after a minute, come into the infield, and the infield would crash. And I come sliding through there, run over my toolbox, flatten his sombrero. And that was it for that. Then he decided after that he needed to get on to a different something else.
You both decided that.
Well, I got to where it wasn't too much longer, and I got a chance to drive sprint cars a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe a year or two or whatever it was. And about that time, they started Hartford Speedway up here, and they didn't have a flagman. Of course, all the help was for free. So they thought, well, the free guy quit or whatever. So they got Doug to do it for a while. Then, of course, he loved Knoxville. He'd been down there with Bill Hill, Darryl Dolly, and a few other guys. Darryl mostly. And he got to going down there, and I don't know how he got that job, because by then I was already a driver.
Yeah.
And gone a lot from home. But he's been there ever since. And other than, he does a good job other than the fact that when I was there, he always cheated for me. You know what? You don't like people to know that. I could see him and the other guys can't, so I knew when he was twitching and knew he was going to throw the flag, He'll love that.
Yeah.
Well, we get the idea. True. I was going to ask you, that's one man's opinion. He knew you wouldn't like that last part. But got to apologize for that a little bit because Doug was riding his bike today. He's out on his bike talking to me on the phone, but rides a lot of miles on his bike. He said 2,000 this summer. But talk about that a little bit. Did you start over at Hartford? I know you did some work at Jackson too.
My basic deal was, I did start at Hartford Speedway. Dean Wiskus was ready to retire, and he was the flagman at Jackson and Hartford. And they told me he was going to retire and stuff like that. And I was helping Darryl Dolly at the time, and that they were his crashing a lot and stuff. And I got tired of working on the car every day. So Don Marquardt was running on the racetrack at that time, and I says, "Hey, let me have a try at it." Well, at that same time, there was a guy by the name of Larry Johns, which he was working at a beer distributor thing, and he wanted to do it. So they set it up to where, he'd flag one week, I'd flag the next week. And then finally the people that were in charge of the type of deal, they decided, they saw that I was interested in the flagging job and gave it to me. That's the only time I flagged free.
and it went from there. The Wiskuses, they were big up in the Jackson.
Yes, they are. Yeah,
area, and with the racing, they're still up there. Well, what interested you in doing it in the first place? I mean, was it just a job at the racetrack, or was it something that you really?
Well, it was just one of those deals where I just actually got tired of working on the race cars, basically, and I was going to stop racing, and, when I was 25, and I was helping Darryl at that time, and I told myself I'm going to be done racing at, 25. Well, now I'm 66 now and stuff, so the 25 flew by. So
Yes, it does. And I see, your grandson, I see him working in the pits every week with down here at Knoxville.
Yeah, he's helps Bobby Mentzer, I guess, and then Just is on the flag stand for me. I'm hoping Caden will get up on the flag stand. That way I'll still get my free ticket to get in the races.
Yeah. He spent plenty of years flagging behind you there in the stands and stuff. There's no secret you're black, and you make a lot of jokes and things like that. But it must have been hard, especially back in those times, in the racing community.
It was, and up in Sioux Falls, everybody kind of knew me there. But when I came down to Knoxville down here, I was starting to think my first name started with an N down here, and then finally, eventually, they straightened out and they saw the kind of job that I would do, and they started liking the job, and they kind of knew how I was going to do it, because that's one thing Cappy taught me, is just be consistent on everything that you do, and I tried doing that. Yeah,
and any threats or anything like that, or just? I know you have pretty thick skin, probably. But
I didn't have no threats in my body. My biggest thing was that year that I had to penalize Mark Kinzer. And today I know who the guy is, but he treats me, you know, like nothing ever happened. And every time I see him, I think about it. But I was done with the races and the trophy presentation stuff, and I get in my car and I'm driving around, getting ready to go down to turn 4 to have a couple of beers with Randy Raleigh and those guys down, the push truck guys down there. And my son Justin comes out of the grandstand. He said, "Dad, what's wrong with the side of your car?" I said, "Nothing." So I went around and looked at it. And this person, he threw pure brake fluid on the side of my car, and the paint was just running off the side of my car right there in the infield and stuff like that. But Cappy took care of it for me.
Yeah, I bet he did. Talking about Cappy, what a great guy. We all miss him.
Yeah.
Your first experience with him came when, you asked him if you could flag the mystery feature one year, didn't you?
Yeah, he was standing at the, I don't know if you guys are all familiar with the pit gate. He was standing there like the Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, a couple days before the mystery race. And I said, "Cappy, if you're going to have all these mystery drivers in this race, how about a mystery flagman?"
It wouldn't get
He
more
said-
mystery than you. Huh?
Yeah. And he says, "That sounds like a damn good idea, Doug. Well, you want to do it?" And I said, "Yep." And so I can't remember if it was Gary. I know Steve Coons was up there. And I think at that time Gary had already gotten hurt, but Steve Coons was up there flagging and some other guy. And I went up there, and Jack Miller was the announcer. And I crawled up there, and I took my own flags up with me, and that's where everybody got the deal with bed sheets. Jack Miller come out and said, "Well, look at this guy. He's got bed sheets with him." And I do the big flags just for, I think it's like a safety deal because I've been in a couple race cars, you know, just like a celebrity race type of thing. And when these guys are waving these little 2-foot flags and those drivers are going, 150 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour,
You weren't
it's
going
hard
that
to
fast.
no.
No.
But when those guys are driving at top speed, it's hard to see that kind of stuff. And I know they watch the flags a lot and stuff. Well, if they're not, they should be. But a lot of guys don't. But that's one of the reasons why I went with the big flags. The second reason is that when I started at Hartford Speedway, they had the flags there, and that's how big they were. And I just thought all the flagmen use that size flags. So, but they're lightweight.
Was that the size Whiskas used too? Or?
I think no, he had his own. I think they were like 2x2 flags that he used.
Gotcha. Now, talking about you mentioned Gary Johnson getting hurt up. That was when the flag stand came over the track here at Knoxville. A lot of safeties happened since then and things like that, but it does get dangerous up there. And you guys are wearing helmets now, and I know. I've been to some tracks where you've been hit by rocks and different stuff. I don't want to mention any names. St. Francis County, Farmington. But it does get dangerous up there. I don't think people realize the speeds and things like it, just holding the flag and that sort of thing, and the danger you have up there.
The people don't, and if they're ever close enough where they can watch the flags. I mean, there's a lot of wind turbulence up there, and there's stuff coming off those race cars, faster than you ever know. And there was one time, it was a World of Outlaw show at Knoxville here, and there was something on the racetrack. I didn't see it at the time, but when I did see it, it was bouncing off my finger, and I ended up getting like 4 stitches in my finger, so it was a piece of pipe. And one of the Outlaw officials said that, well, I saw it laying out there, but I didn't think it was nothing. Well, now that I think about it, hell, that thing could have hit me in the throat or hit me in the chest, it would have been like a bullet, and it was a 1-inch tube, probably about 6 inches long. So it would have been ugly if it would have hit me anyplace else in the body.
Yeah,
except for the head.
Yeah. We're real lucky here at Knoxville with the way our safety is, but you work a lot of other tracks too. Justin, though, he was hit with the side panel.
Yeah.
I think that was salvage. We blame it on salvage, I think, but it was his side panel on the top one.
Yeah, he was doing the flags that night, and then I was turning around getting the double checkered flags out to hand to him. And next thing you know, here he's laying down with my feet, and I said, "What the hell are you doing down there?" I didn't know anything hit him, and then I said, "Wow, he's knocked out." And so I hit the buttons to get the races stopped, and we took control after that and stuff. So,
yeah, that happens. People don't realize that. And talk about, a lot of tracks don't have the backup flagman. Talk about the advantage of having that.
Well, my deal is, And Cappy always said, well, it's better to have 4 eyes up there than just 2. Well, in this case, there's only 3 eyes and stuff. So, but I pay attention to quite a bit to stuff. But like Justin, he'll run the laps, and he'll run the lights and then count the laps, and I'm counting the laps at the same time too. But Justin has a counter in his hand, and if I happen to get interrupted or somebody says something on the radio, break my concentration, I can just turn around and look at the lap counter where he's at and stuff. Because when the guys get up on the flag stand with, especially if they're new, whatever, I tell them where to start counting the laps, because that's where I'm starting to count them at. So if that car's coming out of 4, I'm counting that lap already. But he's important to me. Whoever's behind me is important to me, because then they hand me the flags. Because I don't want to reach around and look at, the only flags that I don't want my assistant to touch is like the yellow and the red and the black and the blue. But the green and white and checkered, who's ever behind me hands them to me, and I want them handed to me in a specific way. And I'm kind of fussy on the flags.
OCD up there.
Yeah.
Now they do the light switch too, right?
Yeah. So and I just tell when Justin started working with me and stuff, I just tell him, just be patient. Sometimes I'll pull the yellow flag out of the holder, but I won't wave it. Just before you turn the lights on, just make sure I'm waving the yellow flag. This is before they had the in-car radio and things like that. But it's that in-car radio really changed flagging a lot and stuff, and it just helps 100%.
Now, did the officials have radios when you started?
Yeah, everybody had radios. Yeah. And up in when we did it in Hartford, all we had was radios, and then I can't remember what kind of radios they were, but a guy worked at the telephone company. He got a bunch of the old. This is kind of, but the operators used to have a headset with the earmuff, and then the mic. Well, that's what we had for radios, and then they had telephone wire strung around the racetrack. And that's how it was connected to everybody and stuff.
Was it Morse code or was it?
No, it wasn't quite that old, but it was different compared to nowadays and stuff. So,
yeah. Talk about a time maybe you missed something on the track that, I know those are your worst nightmare when something like that happens.
Well, my biggest one that I'll never forget till the day I go to my grave was racing Hartford Speedway, and John Stevenson was racing. It was a World Outlaw show, first race I ever did, World Outlaw race. And at Hartford, they had there was no walls or nothing like that. And John Stevenson went off turns 1 and 2, and I didn't see it. And the guy helping me didn't see it, and we didn't have radio communication that good. And John sat out there for a couple of laps. And then pretty soon there's like a couple, 2 or 3 beer cans that get through on the racetrack, and I saw him laying on the racetrack, so I brought the yellow flag out. The ambulance people didn't see John Stevenson up there. Nobody saw John Stevenson up there off the racetrack, and the beer cans what brought the yellow flag out. Then they started pointing up towards turns 1 and 2. So that's that one thing I won't ever forget.
Yeah. So people just started chucking stuff at you. Then.
Well, it wasn't at me, just getting throwing it over the fence. And
Yeah.
So.
Gotcha. Going back to Knoxville, we talked about when you did the mystery feature, but when did you start full time here?
My first season was 1983.
Yeah, and how'd that come about? Where Cappy,
I've
got those calls from Cappy.
I was sitting at home watching TV with my wife at that time and drinking beer, like I did like to do. And I'm sitting there, and Cappy calls up and says, "Doug Clark?" I said, "Yeah." "This is Ralph Capitani of Knoxville Raceway." I said, "Yeah. We want to know if you'd like to flag for us." I said, "Well," at that time I was going over to Jackson, Minnesota, trying to get that job, which would have been a freebie deal. But at the time, I asked Jackson, there's the volunteer thing. So I asked Jackson, I said, "I know you guys can't pay nobody nothing, but how would you like to rent my flags? And I'll run the flags." And so they had their little huddle and stuff and had to have a meeting and stuff. And at that time, they didn't give me an answer that night. But Cappy had called in between there. And I said, "Well, can I get back to you after I talk to Jackson?" And so Jackson finally got back to me, and they said they didn't want to hire my flags. So I called Cappy up, and I said, "I'll take that job." And I can't believe, I made Cappy wait to take this job. It's probably the best thing I've done in my life.
Yeah, and you had somebody else that was counting on you, so you didn't want to let them down either. But the drive from Sioux Falls, a lot of people might not know, about 5 hours a week, one way.
Yeah, that's if you're taking a bunch of rest breaks and all, driving the speed limit. Justin and I got it down to 4 hours and 15 minutes.
All right.
And Justin made it one time, and well, I've made it too. Yeah, a couple different times at 4 hours. So
Yeah. You were still in the front seat by then? Or,
yeah, but I was running on stealth.
I got you. Still a long trip every week. So,
Yes,
I mean, that's a lot of dedication and,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So, I was going to ask you about the black flags. Now, when you started, I mean, guys went to the back the first time,
Yeah.
way to the back.
Yeah,
And then they're done.
Yeah.
You know, which I remember happening more than once.
you can ask Tommy Estes about that.
Yeah, Tommy Estes. I was thinking of him in that '97 car right off the top of my head, but and he's an official now, so yeah, I'm sure he's apologized.
He still throws it in my face.
But I was just going to mention, this day it's so, I don't know, slap on the hand.
Yeah.
Go back
Yep.
a row.
Yep.
Did that change the way you did things a little bit, or?
It has, because you're more relaxed on it, and the drivers know, well, if they jump, they're only going to go back one row, which is a lot, but it's not severe enough. Like when they would race or go all the way to the tail, they knew if they got out of line with me, that something's right, and they're going to have a lot of work to do to put up with and stuff to get back up to where they're at. I wish they would have kept it that same way, because I think all the starts would be a lot better if they knew they're going from the second row or the front row to the back of the row or back of the field.
Yeah, and was that kind of fun too? I mean, just
No,
get back
no,
in.
it wasn't fun because I
It was fun to me.
knew they asked you and I was going to get at the end of the day.
And you talked about the one with Mark Kinzer, but I remember you coming down in the old days. A lot of times you'd come down, and if there was a red flag or a yellow flag, and there was a rough start, you'd go down and talk to the drivers.
Yeah.
And do that. The older you've got, the less you've done that, I think.
Well, we don't have to anymore because they got radio communication, so I can just go up to I can talk up to the tower and have them talk
They're
to
the
them.
bad
Right?
guys.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
can do it.
No, they tell them that the call came from the flag set, but back in those days, we didn't have the radio communication. If they'd stop on the front straightaway, I would walk down there, and the pit crew guys they would say, "Uh-oh, somebody's in trouble."
I always want to be a fly on your shoulder on those deals.
There's not a whole lot that they say once I get down there. There was time up in Hartford, South Dakota, and I penalized the guy, and I walked down to him and said something. I said, "Stay in line. You're going to go. You're going to the back." And he's sitting in the race car all strapped in, ready to push off, and he used the N-word on me, and I said, "What'd you say?" And he said it again. I said, "You're disqualified." I mean, we didn't have a lot of cars there at that time, but I was at that point where, hey, nobody's going to call me that, right to my face, so it's different, if they do it off out in the alley or something and I'm not around, that's, it's not fine and dandy, but if they want to say it, then they can. I'm not hearing it, so.
Right, yeah. And you don't see that very often. I saw it at Oskaloosa the other night where a guy got disqualified for getting in an official's face. So I haven't seen that in a long time. But talk about some of the, I don't want to say controversial, but more exciting deals during the Nationals. I remember an incident with Shane Carson back in the day where the finish was, you remember when the finish was disputed?
Oh, yeah, I do now, yeah, because they, and another one was with Mark Kinzer. They both called Toe Cappy. They wanted to look at the video on the jump and stuff like that. And the one I remember the most was with Mark Kinzer and Cappy and 2 or 3 other people were up in the booth looking at this video of Mark Kinzer and his jump. And Cappy says, well, damn, I didn't know it was that bad. You even makes it look worse on TV, because it was Mark Kinzer took off a long ways before everybody else, and I called it back and penalized him, and that might even be the same night I got the brake fluid deal. But and then the other one I remember is Tommy Estes. I don't know what he was thinking, but he jumped the start. He was already at the back, and he jumped it again. I said, what the hell's wrong with this kid, And so he ended up going to the infield, and he hasn't forgotten yet today. So he still throws it in my face once in a while.
Couple more, then I want to turn it over to the crowd
No.
for maybe your comments.
No.
We got some ringers in here. Just looking at the starts, a lot of people don't understand. Once you throw the green, it's green. I mean, they can get out of line, or I mean, I don't want to say get out of line, but they can get on it.
They can
and
fan
it's time
out.
to race.
Yeah.
It's time to fan out.
We have at Knoxville. We have 2 lines, and I watched the first one to see when they're getting on the gas. And by the time, the way I hold my flag, by the time I get it up to the top of my head, they're already at the start line. So if they're still side by side and fairly straight, I'll let them go. Some guys won't. Some organizations don't even want the drivers fanning out to the side or anything. They want them to stay nose to tail, but that's kind of hard to do. But if the leaders hit that white line at the same time, I'm going to let it go, and it's going to be a start.
Gotcha. And last question for me, well, probably not the last one, but what made you decide this was it for you this year? I know you said it last year.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Justin, he wanted to, take over the 410s, and Ethan, he was the kid from the grandstands. He said, well, I can't wait for you to retire so I can, get up on the flag stand. So, there's a little pressure right there for me, but I at least I'm going out on my own. People aren't telling me to retire and stuff. And
well, not the people that matter anyway.
Yeah. And plus, I like my beer, so I can drink beer, earlier and stuff like that. Don't have to worry about all the pressure and let Justin turn gray-haired and bald.
There you go. Well, we'll turn it over to the crowd here. Any questions out there or any memories? Yeah, in the back.
You say we're at Jackson Speedway and Hartford Speedway?
Yeah. Yes. No, Jackson, Minnesota, and Hartford, South Dakota.
All right, because we had 2 racetracks in Michigan, Jackson Speedway and Hartford.
No, Jackson, South
Yeah.
Dakota.
Doug's from Sioux Falls originally. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Still is.
If I would have known I was going to be here this long, I would have bought a house because I would have had it paid in full by now.
Long time ago. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, Bill. I'm a owner-driver here in the 305s, and go to a lot of races also just as a spectator, and my wife will tell you, I sit in the stands and I shake my head a lot. And Doug, I want to thank you for always looking out for the drivers, safety-wise. One example of this, we talked to you even after the race a few years ago, coming around for I think it was the start of the race, but they were there in a pack, and Sammy coming out of 4, Sammy's dead in the water, no warning or nothing. And by the time I saw it right away, I looked and that yellow flag is coming. And I think other tracks, their thought would be, man, I hope there's not going to be a wreck. And I know that you're thinking, there's not going to be a wreck because I'm stopping this before it happens. So, and I see that a lot, and I know the rest of the drivers do. Thank you. Safety-wise, more than fairness for starts or anything, safety-wise is what I appreciate.
Well, thank you, and that's my biggest priority because I've had quite a few good racers and a couple of my good friends get killed in race cars, so safety is probably my priority on everything.
Including the guy we were talking about earlier that you helped, Daryl Dolly, here at Knoxville.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention that, a lot of the folks here might not know, you flagged a lot of places around the country at a lot of big events.
On my deal, I've been to 19 different states, and I don't know how many flag or racing I did, but I've been to 19 different states. I've been to Charlotte, North Carolina, when that speedway first opened up down there. They had me down to do the original one. Chris Blair used to run Las Vegas when they opened that track up. That was a cold one too. So I don't know if you guys ever been to the desert, but at night it gets cold, and he had me come out there to that one, and then it was so cold when those stealth fighters were taking off. You see those blue flames coming out of those race car or jets, and I said maybe they can just hover over the racetrack for a while, warm it. It was cold, and then the other one was Paris, California. Bubby Jones, he was running that racetrack and had me come out there and do that 2 or 3 different times and sort of things. So I've been to a lot of good tracks, and a lot of times they did, back with Ted Johnson was running the Outlaws and stuff, they'd hire me to, if it was the first time out or whatever, they'd hire me to come do the job because he knew I'd, had to take care of the drivers or help him out in that type of way.
Yep. I remember you were the guy on TV a lot of times when TNN was done. There, you were the guy.
That was back in the good days. Yeah, now I'm just a nobody. So.
Still in your prime. Other questions? Yes.
What's your thought about wearing the helmet now?
I like it. I wish they would have did it like 30 years ago. The thing is, because I don't know if you've ever been on a flag stand or if any people get on a flag stand, there's so much dust and dirt coming at you that with the shield on the helmet and stuff, I can still look right down at the racetrack and watch the cars coming. And I hope people don't get offended, because once I put my helmet on, I start sweating in it, and I just hate putting a cold helmet back. You know, it's wet inside, and I just hate putting that back in my head. But during the national anthem stuff, I try not to take it. I took it off last night because I knew it was going to be a long break in between. But I just like putting it on, and once I work into a sweat, I just want, I'll just stay there and keep it on. So I hope I'm not offending nobody in the grandstands like that. So I just want to make that clear to everybody, and maybe the word will get out. That's why I do it.
I noticed your assistant, he takes his off a little more.
That's my son. He's younger than I am. I'll sit there fumbling around with the straps and stuff.
You can see just as well out of that helmet. I mean, as well as you can with one eye.
Yeah. The helmet doesn't block nothing, so it's all good.
How long have you worn the helmet?
This is our second year. And, Bell Helmet came out with a nice helmet for it. They're not real heavy, but it's neat, and it really does a lot of protection. And like I say, you can look right down the racetrack, and I even stick my head out there further now stuff. So I don't know if that's smart or not. But
That's a great
ventilation too?
No, just whatever comes up into the helmet.
Do you run tear-offs like a driver with that helmet or not?
I have. I got a darker one for when the sun's out, so I can see down in turn 4 during time trials, and I just tear it off and throw it away.
So you got to do that every night. I mean,
Yeah.
My first year at Knoxville was '95, and my first autograph was from you on my T-shirt. So I'm wondering, you have more T-shirts this year?
Yeah, my son does. He comes down. He has a Dodge pickup, and he has them in the back of his pickup. It's after the races down where they push off for time trials and hot laps. He's parked down there, and my car's right beside him and stuff. Yeah. He's selling the T-shirts, and I'm drinking the beer.
Good deal.
Yeah, Doug, I got a question about from a few drivers. Have you got any good stories about Steve Kinzer? I've got like 6 of them I'm going to ask you. Any good stories?
No, I don't get into that kind of stuff. No, I have no stories basically about nothing.
He's never been.
No. There's probably about, I'm guessing probably about 9 or 10 drivers. They've never said nothing bad to me, or I've never had to go down and get in their face or penalize them. Andy Hillenberg, Steve Kinzer, Johnny Herrera, guys like that. Never had no conversations or no.
Sammy?
Who? Do we really got to go there? Anybody that's into racing knows how I got my reputation. But yeah, Sammy's probably. I'll never forget the time Sammy's going around the racetrack, and he's had probably about a straightaway lead on everybody else. And the car's going, and gets to the flag, shuts her down. And I said, what the hell's wrong with that car, And so he did like 3 laps in a row. Finally, I looked down at him, and he's waving at me with one finger, finally. So I'll never forget that either. And then the biggest one was 1983 when I started, and him and Doug Wolfgang were on the front row. And yet to today, I've never asked Wolfgang if he set Sammy up and stuff to take off on that race to get penalized. But it's past. I don't live in the past. So.
What about Dennis Ford Jr. and a wig and driver's meeting?
He's crazy. Oh, did I say that on the microphone?
Anybody who knows him is not going to.
Yeah. Dennis Moore Jr. is just, I don't know if you people probably don't know him. He's a local racer. He used to race there, but he's a good guy, but he's just a couple clicks different. That's all I'm going to say.
Don't hand him a microphone either.
Yeah.
You said a half a dozen. I was
Well, he
waiting.
said he didn't want to talk about, probably, how about Lisowski, or how about Terry McCarl?
Well, Lisowski's a good guy. I like Danny's a good guy. Danny's a guy that let me drive his race car around the racetrack one time, and I thought I was flying, and they were telling me I was doing like 20 seconds. So, and they're running 14s. And if a person's on the flag stand, you guys cannot imagine the moves that those guys drive. That's why I respect them so much, because they're doing stuff in that race car that's within inches of each other and slicing and dicing, and it's just unbelievable. And then you see them go down into I notice it a lot going into turns one. If there's a race car side by side with them, I mean, they'll try and run them into the infield. It's just, and so I have to kind of watch, make sure there isn't going to be any situations going on after that. But most of the time, then somebody will back out and they'll make it both through there. We don't need to go with that other name you talked about.
Pleading the fifth on the other one. You've seen him race a few times in Sioux Falls and Knoxville.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity, because I never asked this or talked to a flagman before, but can you give us just a little insight about when you start a race, you know, what are you looking for? Where do you watch? And then, you know, do you have a routine that you follow?
What I do is when they're going into turn 3, I'm watching them, and usually if somebody's going to jump out of line, they're kind of eyeballing where they're going to do it at. And when they get to that first orange line or first line, I'm looking at it, and you have a split second to glance over that whole field. You know, it don't matter if there's 24 or 10 cars in there. I just glance over the whole field, and I say, and if somebody's out of line, and especially if they're on the outside, it sticks out like a sore thumb. But then I just try to be consistent with that. If one person does it, I'll watch the whole night. Basically, every weekend I do it that way, and that's my main thing. Is a quick glance over it. But I'm still focused on the front 2 cars, because when they hit that line, I want to be waving the green flag and the light coming on at the same time.
And then how about going into turns 1 and 2? What do you do there?
Once the race gets going, what I do is I focus on the first 3 cars and the last car of that lap, because we're counting the laps ourselves, so you have to know where that leader is all the time. And when it's a close race, you kind of see who's coming up on the leader. Or, you know, like I think there was a time when I think Steve Kinzer started at the back, and he was working his way up to the front and stuff. And Doug Wolfgang did it in the alphabet deal. Once you get to know the race car drivers and how they race, and if they're fairly clean, you just kind of focus on them, but you still keep track of where that leader is. So when they do get past, you know, that you know who's leading the race.
And now with the split yellows, that's kind of changed. You don't really have to worry about everybody completing the lap, right?
I think you have to get 3 or 4 cars across the start-finish line, but I don't get into that stuff.
That's upstairs now, which is a lot different. Every officiating crew is different too. Have there been different places where you got help from upstairs too on the starts, or is it mostly leave it all to you? Or
it's mostly left up to me. The World Outlaw Show, whenever it's a World Outlaw Show, they have different things. So if a call gets called back, it's from them. The All-Stars, they have their guy up here on top. They call their stuff. But like when it's a regular Knoxville, like the Nationals, all the calls will be coming from the flag stand. And then there was something else I had to tell you, but I don't remember now because I'm old. But I'll think about it.
all right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Doug, you always are at the drivers' meeting. Tell us what you tell the drivers in the drivers' meeting.
Basically, I just tell them our basic rules of Knoxville Raceway, where the oil cans are, my biggest thing is how I'm going to start the race and where they can start it, where they can pick up the throttle, where to fire their engines up, how they can get off the racetrack if it's a racing condition, you know, and push off in the work area, things like that. I just cover the basics. All those other rules, that's up to John McCoy or who's ever running the infield type of thing. I don't get into that kind of stuff. That's too complicated for me. I'm a simple old man.
And where they can buy a T-shirt.
Yeah,
Tell them that.
yeah. No, that's one thing I don't.
You gotta get Brown on that or something. He'll market that for you.
Yeah.
Questions? Yeah, back there.
Just a comment, I guess my wife and I had the honor of camping next to you for a couple of years.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You made it a couple years.
To be a very friendly person to be around, so. The other comment I have is there's a white light that hangs above the flag tower, and it's very irritating to me to try to watch the race.
Oh, yeah?
That thing out. Is there a hood that could be put on that thing?
You'd have to talk to Skeeter or else John McCoy about that. I think what happened is got hit by some dirt and got turned more towards the grandstands. I'll see if we can't get somebody up there to turn it a little bit for you. It's kind of hard to get to because they got to bring a lift out there to get up to it because you can't get it right from the flag stand. It's up there pretty good.
So you want me to contact somebody other than...
No, I'll handle it for you. I don't want you pissing my boss off.
They're not busy this week. Just give them a call.
Yeah.
They'll take care of
it. They're not. The shirts aren't from me. For me, it's all Justin. So he's just using my name. I want to do like Dale Earnhardt, and I should have trademarked my name, but I'm too late now.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the T-shirt, I wore mine last night. Got a lot of comments on it. So
That's good. Did you sell any?
no.
Well, what the hell?
I already told you if you get a cut and I get a cut.
Justin don't even give me a beer out of it. You know what he said to me last night? He's sitting down there coming over to my car getting beers and stuff, and Justin says, "Hey, Dad." And I said, "What? You going to buy the beers next year too?" I said, "Hell no." So, yeah.
Is there any incident or a couple incidents that really stand out for you in your history of flagging?
Just the main one is one with Sammy and Wolfgang. The other one is with Tommy Estes. Other than that, it's nothing real spectacular. I just hate seeing guys get hurt in race cars and that type of deal.
Is that the Sammy Black flag then?
Huh?
Is that the Sammy Black flag?
That's the one I put Sammy to the back, yeah, that 83.
That's $100.
$100 for what?
I told you, throw it again on him.
We got a Sammy lover up here, people. He's wearing a red shirt and a black cap. His name's Kevin.
How many times have you had the driver try to climb that fence? I know you put Vaseline down there, but
it's this flag stand you can't because they got they got the sheep wire or whatever, and then they got the real small stuff in front of the flag stand, and people don't realize that, but it's to keep the dirt from going on all the spectators coming right through the gate. But there was one time when Norm Wadley was helping me flag, and he did something, I can't remember the guy's name, his number was a pink 25.
Rick McClure.
Yeah.
We don't mention names.
Okay. Anyway, it was great. He was so mad at Norm that he wanted to climb the fence, and he started climbing. He couldn't get nothing, so he had to go. It was probably about another 8 feet down from the flag stand before he could get out there. And Norm just sitting there looking at him. What's wrong with you?
Norm was a good guy. He was your backup for a long time.
Yes, he was. He was here quite a while, and then he was working in the Hall of Fame here.
Yeah, he was a really good supporter of ours. We lost him in the last year. Yes, sir.
I'm curious. A lot of times there's youngsters in the grandstands that are flagging. Do they ever come up to you and ask for advice or anything like that?
They don't ask for advice, but they get on the flag stand. The kid that's going to be doing, I don't know if he's going to do the 360s and 305s next year, but that's how he got his start. He was up there on the grandstand waving the flags, and John McCoy needed a flagman for the enduro they was having here, and they didn't want to pay me to come down and do an enduro. And Justin already told them no, he wasn't going to do an enduro, so they asked Ethan to do it. He got up there, and John says, "Is he 16?" I said, "I don't know. I think so." Thank God he was, because John had already hired him. But that's how we picked Ethan up. I said, "Well, have Ethan do the enduro, and that way I won't have to come down here." And now he's going to be taking over.
He
with
does
Justin.
the pro sprints here on a weekly basis, or 305 Valley Pro Sprint.
But he's one of those kids that was up there waving the flags.
The rest of them are related to Doug. Yeah.
Don't get that rumor going. There's only one kid up there that's related to me.
And one kid that wasn't related up there.
I got a bad rep down here in Knoxville.
Any other questions? We'll do one or two more here. Yeah.
Well, I happen to think you brought up the drivers that are out of line or would maybe have a controversy. From my experience, the pit crew people are probably in another division when it comes to trying to get in, how can I say, influence or talk about favoritism and things like that. Have you had a lot of confrontations with angry pit people?
Not really. There's only, I don't know if he was a pit guy or a driver. There was one guy that he didn't like my call or did something or whatever I did, and was walking, and he's sitting there looking at me, and he was raising his voice, and that's one thing I used to tell him at the drivers' meeting. You raise your voice to me or start yelling and screaming at me, I'll walk away, because I'm not going to put up with that. Anyway, he started yelling and screaming at me, and I said, that's it. He said, well, let's talk about this like white people. I said, wait a minute. I ain't white. In case you didn't know. And then there's another one. This guy's sitting there barking at me and stuff, and I can tell when somebody's looking at the wrong eye, because he's sitting there looking at my left eye. And I said, look over here. Here's where I'm looking at you with. And that shut him up, and he just turned around and walked away. So. I can be a butthead just like them. So.
How about fans? Any fans?
Like what?
I mean, any fans?
Get in my face?
Yeah, after the race.
No, not really.
No.
That's one thing
They had time to cool down, probably.
Yeah, and I don't even. There was one time I had some lady came out of the grandstand. She'd already had enough beer in her, and she was sitting there yelling and screaming at me. And I said, "Who are you?" I'm so and so's wife. I said, "I don't talk to wives. I talk to car owners and mechanic and drivers. That's all I talk to. You need to get out of my face." And then next week she comes back. I'm an owner. I said, whatever. So I don't put up with a lot of BS after the races, because I know those people, 99% of them are been up there drinking and things. So and I'm sober, and that's the worst thing I hate. Is I come down off the flag stand, I'm sober, and these people are all drunk. It's just not fun.
That's why you get down to the push-off lane.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. How about one more question?
I got
Chris?
Have you ever had an instance where you couldn't get a flag out? I can remember one time you were trying to flag and got caught up in the fence.
Yeah, and my flags are fairly expensive. I get them out of California, and I hate that. Their racetracks just have all kinds of bad wires hanging around the flag stand, and it'll hook them and it'll tear them real easy. So that kind of irritates me. Yeah, I had it. So then I get mad and I just jerk on it, and there goes a flag.
Have you ever got where you couldn't get it down? And
No,
you needed it down?
One way or another, I'm getting it down.
How about dropping the flag?
Why? Why do you? That's way back in 1983. Jeez. There was, all right, I'll just say it so nobody have to ask it. Yeah, there is, when I first got up on the flag stand down here in Knoxville, I wasn't really used to the turbulence from the race cars and stuff, and I went to wave the yellow flag, and I bring it up like this, and I didn't have a good grip on it, and the flag takes off, went back in the grandstands, and I said, all right, what do I do now? So I just grabbed the move over flag and flipped the lights on and got things slowed down, and I can't remember, somebody from the audience or grandstands brought the yellow flag back to me. Now we got that out in the open.
What else have we missed? All right. Well, I'd like to give him a round of applause here. Let's give Doug a round of applause.
Thank you.
Very busy week for him, but we really appreciate the job he does and has done over the years. And if we didn't get you this year, it would have been tough. We enjoy having you at the induction weekend, too. That's a lot of fun, isn't it? Getting those old guys up there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Do you give the checkered flags to the winners?
No. God, no, I paid too much money for them.
I didn't realize they were so expensive,
Yeah.
so when they're waving the flag, they gotta give it back to you.
Yeah. And the only flags I get to get kept is the FVP flags, because the FVP people of FVP want and hang on their office walls or whatever. Those are the only, but Knoxville pays me for them. So
Now, how about, now it's a really old tradition, the flagman to be in victory lane. I was going to ask you about this, but to get behind the driver, you know, a lot of people come in and say, well, the flagman's down there in victory lane. I say, yeah. That's kind of a tradition, isn't it?
that's the only way. That's the way I was brought up.
I was brought up too, so these kids will come up and they'll say, "Oh, there's a flagman down there." I say, "Yeah, he's in the victory lane."
Yeah.
So I
thought that's the way you're supposed to do it. So.
Yeah. And I think it goes way back to when flagmen were down on the track.
Yeah.
They were crazy. Talk
Yeah.
about Desmore Jr., but
Yeah.
those guys down waving the flags on the track.
Yes.
Right? I think that's when it came from.
I tried that once. They had a nostalgia race up in Sioux Falls. So I'm down on the racetrack, and I saw the old flagman. They used to jump up in the air and wave the flag and come down. I came down and landed all right. It wasn't pretty.
All right, I think we'll close with that. Everybody have a good time here at the Nationals.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Down to the final 4 sprint car races of the year.